Recently, there was a Jubilee episode which featured Piers Morgan, and one of the topics of that video was masculinity has never been toxic. I think that this is an extremely important conversation in today's world because I think for the past, at least when I grew up, um, I'm a fairly young man. At least when I was growing up and in the early 2000s, I feel like sort of culture and masculinity and a lot of things was pretty feminized and has been pretty feminized. Um, and I think even the idea of a man has been shifted to sort of this weird gray area where a lot of women want you to almost be a woman. Like how comfortable you are to being a woman is seen as, how much of a man you are. So it's a little paradoxical. And I think this has resulted in certain phrases being super common, like real men wear pink, real men cry, real men, wear makeup, real men can wear dresses, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just been sort of like an overall attack on masculinity and what it is to be a man. And I think that to answer this question, to answer the question of what is a man and what a man should be, I think we can look at certain philosophies. And I think the main one that I'm going to look at today is Stoicism. Stoicism, to me, is there are several reasons that I believe it is a core framework for what is being a man. Um, my belief comes from all of the core tenets of Stoicism. One of those, the first one I'm going to talk about, being living within accordance to nature. And I don't believe that literally, like, I don't think it's like you should be a caveman or like a primal man that lives out in the woods. Maybe, maybe. Um, but I believe it's more referring to living within accordance with logic and reason, which I believe, again, I think that is a wildly important thing, not just for men, but for women too, for anybody. Uh, Very often, I find people who don't even live within the flows of their own logic. It's one thing to live with, actual logic and actual reason, but you can have your own delusional version of logic. And I meet many people that don't even do that. They have many moral principles that they believe, yet they violate them constantly, and for whatever reason they feel. Another core tenet of Stoicism is this idea that true happiness and self fulfillment come not from happiness or like momentary pleasures and things that will instantly gratify you, but rather virtue and like work. I think this is a very important idea in today's society because it has been almost entirely rejected by everybody. We live in a world where instant gratification is is the ruler of people's lives. Things like TikTok, Instagram, even not even something like digital or like dopamine, but in a different way, something like fast food, something like porn, anything like that. Stoicism says like those are not what give you true happiness. Like surrounding yourself by those only really leads you to destruction. But true happiness is working towards something, serving your community, serving the people around you, working hard, like creating something, producing something that can benefit people. And, to even apply this in a Christian sense, it could be something like serving God, living virtuously, like helping out your church. And the last tenet of Stoicism that I want to cover is sort of a two-parter, but it's also sort of the the core belief of Stoicism that a lot of people that are super casual to philosophy and stuff like that would be familiar with, and it's the idea of controlling your emotions. So the idea that we don't control what happens to us, but what we can control is our reaction, is our emotion. Um, the reason I think it's a two-parter is because one of the sort of assumptions, or one of the things that this belief asserts, is that certain emotions are bad. Again, that is a blasphemous statement in the modern world, but it's this idea that certain emotions, like anger, you know, like knee-jerk happiness, like fear, they're all they're negative. They're, at least they cloud their judgment. And I think I would go even further to say any emotion that causes you to do an unreasonable action is bad. And you might say that's almost any emotion, which, hey, maybe it is. And to answer this sort of core question that I believe this video has been trying to address is, how should men react to their emotions? And as the title says, should men cry? I don't think so. To me, crying is sort of like you've given up. Crying is like you throw your hands up. You're like, I don't know what to do. I have to get out these emotions, and I'm just gonna, like, somebody else has to take the reins. And I think as a man, it could be extremely dangerous to do that. In a lot of situations, you can't do that. It's just not even an option for you. Like, you've got boats to carry. You don't have time to be like, somebody else take me. I think that I don't think crying is necessarily a bad all the time. Like, I don't think that's I don't know, an objective fact of the universe that it's bad. But I think definitely as a man, you should try to minimize it. If you do, it should be like by yourself. It should be like, it shouldn't be like a public display of emotion, because I think that's one of the worst things you could ever do as a man, is to be emotional in public as a display to either gain sympathy or anything like that. I think you should be by yourself. You should get it out, and then after that, wipe the tears off your face, and then start planning, start moving. Because again, it should be only in extreme cases. And so, in conclusion, I believe that men should embrace Stoicism, and they should embrace control and reason and logic. Don't be, I'm gonna say, don't be a woman, but don't appeal to the modern narrative of feminizing yourself. In the Piers Morgan debate, he debated Parker. Parker is an extremely emotional man. During the debate, he was literally shaking, and he was talking about how he goes to therapy. He's doing all that. And I know him and his whole group of buddies, Parker, Dean, Harry Sisson or whatever. Those guys, they're all extremely emotional. They get upset all the time. They insult people, commit a bunch of logical fallacies. So I think there's two sort of obvious paths. Piers Morgan's not perfect, but I think there's two paths sort of colliding each other, of the traditional man and the modern man. So I think, you got to choose which path you want to take. Alrighty, that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If you, enjoyed, make sure to, like, comment, subscribe, do all that. If you didn't like it, still make sure to subscribe. You want to keep your cognitive dissonance low. If you didn't like it, comment, tell me why. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.